Welcome to Oh Brother, a podcast of three brothers trying to figure it all out, with your hosts, Brandon, Colin, and Aaron. On this week's show, the most British way possible.
Ahoy!
Ahoy!
After an unknowable amount of time, we have regathered to podcast again.
Indeed, we have.
Really? So, sorry, can you hear me okay? I'm podcasting inside right now because it's hot out on the deck, so
It's true.
I scurried away from the sun.
Good plan.
Thanks. I try my best.
He
Side note, do you want to wait for Aaron?
just said no because he has to go and do coachy things.
Okay.
So Coach Aaron has to go meet the parents, schmooze, and do whatever coaches do. I don't know what coaches do. To be honest,
The coach.
Sure. Yeah, but like outside of coaching, I don't know what they do. So he's not going to coach now. So I don't know what
he's preparing to coach in the future.
Pre-coaching.
Pre-coaching coaching.
Got it.
Right? That's
Pre-coach
general
coaching.
Yep. Pre-coach coaching, which is generally the process that coaches go through.
I think it's mostly like, yes, I am coach. Hello.
Yes, the introduction of self as coach.
Yeah.
Would probably be good.
I mean, I guess. I don't know. I don't know these things.
Oh. Fine.
I like these things to go a bit more organically. I don't like to force them. It's awkward that way.
Right. That's true. Right. Don't really want to put it into place. I'm
small preview for the future. Right.
Oh.
In addition to continuing to discuss The Hobbit, which is what we're about to do here in a little bit. I need you to know that I have, in fact, just finished season 2 of Clarkson's Farm. So that can happen later.
Okay.
just so you're aware. I watched a couple of them. Like, I downloaded them to my phone. So I watched some on like the plane, right?
Oh, yeah.
On a trip and stuff. And so I watched a little bit and I finished them when I got back home because I only watched a few. So I have now finished Clarkson's Farm season 2. So if you're curious, we can do right. But
yes.
But I have now seen it. So
okay.
Good blame. And the new Grand Tour is out. I have not watched it yet.
Same. I have not watched it either.
But so whatever you do, we can talk about that too if you want a little bit.
Yes.
Give a little.
Okay.
Boom.
Okay.
Just wanted to let you know what I've been doing. My pop culture stuff going on here. So that's what I got so far.
I like it.
Glam.
When I'm working at my desk typing and stuff, I'm either listening to podcasts, but I have been trying to wrap up the Demon Slayer Swordsmith Village arc very recently. And I just did the season finale, so just wrapped that up, and that's what nice. So you finished Clarkson, I finished that one. It was good. It was very good. I will say, quick comment. Their normal episodes are like 20 minutes, 23 minutes, and then the season finale is always like 1 hour.
That sounds about right. You got to wrap up a lot,
So much. So much.
Got to do a lot of wrapping up. Today I started watching, just because I was already on Amazon Prime. Hashtag not sponsored, but hey, how's it going?
Yet. The power of yet.
The power of yet. That's what my bulletin board says in my classroom.
Yeah. Great tie-in.
But I started watching that Reacher show today, the Jack Reacher thing.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty good stuff right there. I know I'm a little late because it came out like, last year. But, getting around, it like popped up in recommendations. And I was like, yeah, I think I will. I don't got anything to do today. Boom, we're going to watch some of that. I watched about half the season today so far, just in and out. So, boom, pretty good stuff. I like it. So, we'll see how it ends. I haven't finished it yet, but boom, that's what I've been also watching. So there you go. There's some updates on what on earth I've been watching in my spare time. Because now that I have a lot of spare time, I figure I should probably do some of that. Have some reviews to bring to the table, right? Whenever you go, what have you done today? Dishes. That's it. It's all I got.
Easy. Right. Okay. Yeah, but it's nice to be able to do that. I don't know. I just, have little touch points on things and get caught up on, especially on things that you like, then you feel like you're having to be a drudgery.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to find something to do today. In between, you can only watch so much Law and Order, and then you got to do something else. So, like, even though I love Law and Order, also yesterday, the day I got back, the day after I got back, I can't remember now. It's only been like 3 days ago, but I still have no idea. When I got back, the first thing that was on, I found on TV was a marathon of Law and Order season 1.
Whoa.
Yeah. Law and Order season 1. It was great.
Wow. When did that come out?
1990. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. New York looked a little different then, right? I was like, whoa. They were like driving around. I was like, wait, I was there. Doesn't look like that right now. Other things you get used to in like police procedurals, right? Like you don't think about. They were like, "Yo, I got the fingerprints back," and they pulled out this card and handed it to him. Right?
Oh, and you're like, what's that?
And they were like checking something, and they were doing like the bullet with the microscope thing.
Oh,
I haven't seen that in forever.
Last made popular in the Great Mouse Detective, I believe.
I mean, of course, right? But they did that, and they were like, just like the lab stuff. It was hysterical, and they were like, "Yeah, we have to wait several days to get that reported." Like, wow.
What? How did anything get done?
I know. It was wild.
Or them stepping to the side to make a phone call in a phone booth.
Yeah, right. There was like let me call somebody, right? Because like modern Law and Order, they just whip out the phone and they call like the whoever, right?
And like moodily sauntering up to their car, right?
Yeah.
And they don't have that anymore. They don't have it anymore. They don't have that back then. You can't do the moody saunter, snapping the phone shut, or even aggressively putting it in your pocket. Get in.
Yeah, because you can't. There's no phone, right? There's like barely a fax machine. So like, you also just have to like. It's just so weird. It's just like, oh my God. So it was just enthralling and interesting to see how much Law and Order has changed in 23 years, right? Like it was just a lot. It's like, wow, I can't. Yeah. Also, these haircuts are incredible. Like I can't even like
yes.
I can't imagine like they pull people in for an interview like, what are you wearing? Oh my gosh. You tend to forget about shoulder pads, right? And like
so much feathering, I guess.
Yeah, so much. It's crazy.
That's amazing. Well, it's nice that we have those little time capsules there for us to go back and be horrified by, I guess. Uh-oh. Oh, no.
Kragan was on season 1. I remember that. I remember that Dan Florek was in original Law and Order. Forgot all about that. Forgot all about that Chris North guy from Law and Order Criminal Intent was also in the original Law and Order. Like, oh yeah, he was there before, and then came back to reprise his role in that spin-off series Law and Order Criminal Intent for a while.
Oh,
same guy. Boom.
Criminal Intent. I don't know. Do you have Do you have a favorite Law and Order spinoff?
I mean, I like SVU just because I like the cast the most, right?
Sure.
Importantly, I like it when it was like kind of like the early stuff, right? I like it when it was like Dan Florek and Mariska Hargitay and it had like Liv and Elle. Liv when Elliot was still there. Whenever Munch was still there, right? I like that early stuff. That's my favorite. I like some of the other stuff too, but that's like my favorite. It's like peak Law and Order for me. Law and Order SVU. Criminal Intent is okay. It's weird because like they do that thing later where they like one episode is like that one pair of detectives, and then the other one is like Vincent D'Onofrio and that other lady. And I don't really like Vincent D'Onofrio and the other lady, so I like the other people. So it's like I like every other episode of Criminal Intent. That's a little bit awkward. Yeah, it's like, oh, I like Chris North, right? He's cool, and then that other lady, the redhead lady, whatever. I don't remember what her name is. I was watching some of that earlier today. That's why I'm thinking about it. But like, I like that. I like normal Law and Order, right? But yeah, I like him. I like SV the most just because I like the cast the best. We've talked about this before. A bit dark, not great, just like wholesome family entertainment, right? The subject matter is a bit heavy, but that's why it's good to switch it up between the Law and Orders. And I haven't watched any of the new Law and Order because they like brought it back, like just normal Law and Order.
Yeah,
I haven't seen any of that, so I have no opinion on that at all because I haven't seen any of it.
Right. Last opinion firmly from early 2000s.
Yeah, right. Like because it like normal Law and Order went away, and there was like a couple of random spinoffs. Then like I don't know, and then like because then Criminal Intent was around for a while, and then it went away, and then SVU's been around for forever, and then like normal Law and Order came back again, and then like I don't. But I haven't seen like the brand new stuff. I haven't seen a lot of the brand new stuff. I mostly watch the rerun because they're what's on all day, and it's fine.
Well, yeah.
You also have to switch it up because the only ones that ever show like this last, at least today and yesterday, the SVU ones, the only reruns they've been showing are the ones that I've seen like recently. So it's like, dang it, I don't want to watch this. It's a lot less exciting, like when you know what's happening, right? It's like, oh well, I don't really want to. The suspense is gone, right? Because you know what's happening. You're like, oh yeah, it was that guy. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna
right. Okay, now on to the thing.
Yeah, moving on. Next, got to keep going. Which is why you start watching Reacher. There you go. That's what you do. Kablam!
Nice tie-in. Very well done.
Indeed. You've been up to. How was dog walking today in the hotness?
Oh man, it was fine. I'm covering morning visits, so we didn't have to worry too much about the heat. We are one of the. I mentioned the client the other day that's going to be gone for a month, and so we're taking care of their dog. Well, the dog has started to exhibit some overexcited or nervous tendencies already. So we're having to kind of switch up our. Yeah, I'm like, we still have 3 weeks left anyway, which is fine. It's one of those where as long as the dog isn't destructive and we do what we can to manage the dog, it's just hard because during a visit you can only do so much, right? And so it's really making sure that every single person follows the set tasks. I'll be like, okay, I know you're going to be there at the second visit, and I know you're probably going to see that there's poop in the litter box. Don't scoop. The third visit is when we scoop litter. It has to be that way. So we're trying to schedule. We're trying to match like long tasks or tasks that eat up a lot of time with short tasks, so that the person who's brushing this dog is not also needing to take them on a 20-minute walk, because we can't do those two things at the same time.
There's not enough time, right?
There's just not enough time to brush him appropriately at all. So it's so the first visit of the day was supposed to be when our big walk was for him, but now we're going to go ahead and add a second walk at the second visit, because that one was just like playtime in the outside and brush a cat. So it's like, okay, well, let's switch the playtime in the backyard to a good walk, and then we'll brush the cat. Like, that's what we can do to help with this, because he's just getting very, very excitable when we come in, which is either he's got energy to burn off or he's starting to get anxious. And so we're trying to like hit both of those by helping him manage his energy a little bit better. So we'll see. So that was something that came up today where it's like, okay, like we need to write up a how-to and change up a few of these things so that he can last the rest of the so that we can last.
I was gonna say so that you can last. Yeah,
the rest of the month.
That's a lot of. That's a long time to have to deal with a very anxious doggo.
Such a long time. Yeah,
that's a
I guess. And so we have to make sure that we, are monitoring his for any destruction and all that good stuff. So we will see. I kind of foresee that we will be purchasing some puzzles and such here shortly to help entertain him while we are away. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
That sounds interesting. Like
it's it's one of those things of going, yeah, we like. Sorry, I have to adjust my microphone. It's all right. It's okay. It's all right. Sorry.
It's part of the gig, man.
Yeah, that's how you know it's real. Can't mimic those sounds. Yeah, it's not AI. I can't program that sound in.
Oh yeah, never.
Yeah, I'm going, okay, this dog normally is at home with a stay-at-home owner, and the other works outside the home. So that environment is very different than the current environment that it's in, and also used to having like kids in the family. So there's a lot more action that the dog is usually exposed to, or activities throughout the day. So it really turns into a true enrichment mindset now of what can we do in our little time window to mentally get him engaged and exhausted, to physically get him engaged and exhausted, to build that connection with him, to fill up his love tank, all that stuff. And right now we're having to go, okay, first visit is about physical exercise. Second visit was about mental stimulations. Third visit was mental stimulation. And then fourth visit was more physical exercise. But I think we're just going to have a kind of a continuing rotation of what those look like, so that it doesn't become rote or boring or predictable, and he can still have fun things to engage in. But that's where sitting down with everybody and going, okay, like, what ideas do we have? How do we do this? And it's something that's going to be a lot more common. We just did a total. So in addition to changing all of our software and ripping out that entire guts, and also changing like how we bill and stuff, we also changing our pricing structure on a few things, and we've made our longer visits a little bit more attractable. Attractable? Is that the word I want? Attractive, yeah. No, they don't know they are attractable, because they have the potential to be attractive. So no, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Oh, my brain. Yes, more attractive to our clients, and we're going to try pushing those more. And as I explained to all of our staff, I went, 30 minutes is going to feel very different than 60 minutes. Like all those times where you were like on the couch petting the dog and you're like, oh gosh, I got to go do other stuff. Now you can sit on the couch for a little bit longer while you pet the dog, right? You're not going to feel as chunk from thing to thing. But that also means that you can't luxuriate too much in the time, because then you're going to look up and you've been there an hour and 20 minutes. So it's going to be kind of a different mindset for what to do. Of like, what does it mean to throw the ball, play fetch in the backyard? Like really budgeting that time out differently, but it feels weird. Every time I do an hour-long visit, it just feels wrong, because it's not what I normally do. So it'll be so we wrote up a big long list of possible things you can do to fill an hour long, and adding a bunch of ideas and stuff to it. We've been sending that to staff so that they have those on hand for just different possible ideas.
Very interesting. So the reason for going to longer visits is that to just service dog needs more, to alleviate scheduling conflicts? Like, what is the benefit of doing that, really?
Well, so there are pros and cons to it, I will say. So when we went from 30 to 60, we did not just double our rate. So what does that mean? Well, that means that, because an hour long is actually taking up 2 slots where another person could have potentially booked a 30-minute visit at the full rate. So if we had 2 30-minute visits back to back by 2 separate clients, we would be getting more money than we would by staying at one client for longer. However, it is less costly per visit to conduct. What do I mean by that? Once I'm at the visit, all of my costs for getting there are taken into account. So the time I have to pay staff members to get there is already there. The mileage I have to reimburse for,
like mileage, gas, all that stuff, like, you know,
is already taken into account. So every moment I stay longer at that client becomes more and more profitable for us, and we can actually pay our staff members better because of that. Because per visit, we, the company, make more after expenses are taken into account. And so it's more profitable in that case. But if you look at like total overall revenue, if all we did was book 1 hours, total revenue, we would make less, but the profit on that would be profit. I'm just saying, like, after expenses, what's left over, like that would be more. And so it gives us more margin for purchasing supplies, continuing education, giving raises, that kind of stuff. So that's why we want to make those a little bit more attractive. See, I used the word right.
There you
go. Also, we can pitch them as a sometimes at night, people may want you. We can rebrand it also as a tuck-in service of, let us come to it at night, and we can spend a little bit longer by about double the amount of time being with your dog, being with your cat, really rounding out the day with them really well, and just spending more time with them before we leave, so that they get, maybe extends it a little bit later into the evening than it normally would. So we'll see how that goes. But that was, and I say all that to say that as soon as we pushed that out there and we people were notified about it, one person booked a week and a half of midday 1 hour long visits. So
of course,
it was like, great. Now I need to. It's this our typical MO. Let's just push this out there and see what. Oh my gosh, people like this. Now we have to figure it out.
Well, because that creates like weird staffing issues where you have to, because like if some people are doing like they just want 30 minutes or other people want like an hour, now it's like, how do I do that, right? How do I get people around?
Well, yes. And so that is going to be an issue, because if we've got a busy schedule of vacation clients, and there have been times where it's like, I have no more time to put here in this time block. If somebody wanted an hour long, like we would have to deny them an hour long, because if a lot of times it's like 6:30 to 7, 7:10 to 7:40, 7, then you go, okay, 7:55 to 8, like they get back to back to back to back to back, at which point it's like, if I had to double the amount of time that I was here, it'd be really restrictive for my ability to take on more clients. So it's a risk that we're going to run.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like,
yeah. So really, the best case scenario will be when we have double coverage over each time block, and then I can shuffle visits in between 2 separate staff members and go, okay, like, you get the hour long, you get these 2 visits, you get this, you get that. So I can move that to create more space.
That makes sense.
But we're not there yet. So we'll just figure it out.
Let's go with it. See what happens, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what we do. So yeah, that's been that has been what we have been doing. And we sent out another email reminder today about people to activate their accounts. And my goodness, you tell people that you're like shutting off the old one, and people who haven't booked you for a year and a half are suddenly activating their account and filling out their client and pet profile information. And I'm like, why? Like, do you even live here anymore? Like, I haven't heard from you in a year. What are you doing? So
well, they just want to make sure, just in case,
we have had that happen too, where someone says, "Hey, I just want to fill out the profile just in case." And it's like, "Oh, okay, fine, like whatever. We're here."
Yeah, for whenever they do need it, like,
yes,
and have it, and they just go.
Well, and that's been our big push too. Of like, it is a bit of a process, because while we brought over as much information as we could from our old software, but some of it got a little jarbled. And also some of it is 3 or 4 years old from when we first started caring for some people. So it's a great time to update your emergency contact information, right? So
yeah,
some fields have been intentionally left blank. Another big one is previously we were kind of keeping up with vaccination records by just having clients text us a photo of their vaccination record, and then that would just kind of stay in that message thread. However, with this new system, it allows it to be stored in the profile. And what's really neat is the client uploads a photo of it or uploads the actual document, and they set when it's going to expire. And then we have to come in and confirm that and enter the actual expiration date. And then it automatically sets reminders to send those people X number of weeks or months before it expires so that it can stay current. However, not many people just keep their vaccination records lying around. And so that can be a bit of a process if you have to go to your vet, ask them for this information. They have to send it to you. You have to go back to the profile, upload it, type in information, and then send it to us to confirm. And if you're needing visits to start today or tomorrow, that's just not going to happen. So we can switch it off per client and say, okay, never mind, we'll remove that from you. Just make sure that you get it to us when you get back. But we're trying not to do that because we really want to stay up to date with this stuff. But it's also, we don't want to inconvenience people because they're used to operating one way. So trying to get ahead of people and going, you may only book us 2 times a year. Go ahead and get your information right now so that you don't have to worry about this when that time comes.
That makes sense, I guess. But also, people don't just put that in a folder and just keep it in a thing. Like, that doesn't.
No. A lot of people just, because they get the receipt from it and then they just like throw it away.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's just a receipt in a lot of cases. It's not like a document kind of thing.
True, I guess. Huh. That just seems weird, but I don't know.
It's how some people operate, right? It's just, you'd think some people would keep it, but they don't. And so we've got to go, okay.
Well, I mean, yeah, because like, I guess the thing that you need is the little collar tag, right?
Yes.
So like, because like our vet would just give us like the updated little collary thing. And that is usually all you need, right? Because you're just like, oh, okay, here's my proof. It's on this little doodad, this little bauble that I'm going to hang on the collar.
Right.
And then that's all you really care about. So like, I guess you could just take a picture of that here. Like,
no one's done that yet because sometimes they don't have, I don't remember if sometimes they do the expiration date on the collar and sometimes they don't. I think most sometimes
it depends on the vet or whatever.
Yeah. So anyway,
they should just put it on there. They can just send you a picture of the collar thing. Bam.
Yes.
Come on, that's get with it.
Yes.
Some of them has expiration. Usually has the date that it happened.
Yes.
On there. Like the date it was updated, but not an expiration date, if I remember correctly.
I think it does too when it happens. So you would just have to. Yeah. So I
extrapolate out.
That would probably work. But again, sometimes even then clients don't have that on their tags. Sometimes dogs don't. So anyway, we just want the document. That way it also has the vet information on it that we can check to see if that's also on their client profile. Because sometimes they don't put that in right. So
good point.
We just want the document or a photo of the document. And so that's been fun. And then the other thing is that this means that we've been sending out these emails. Well, some clients are still in the old software and they've been contacting us worried that they logged in and create an account and they don't see their visits that were in the old software. So we've been having to update them and say, no, if it's in the old software, it's in the old software. We'll see those through, but any new ones, right? We'll go through the new one. So having to reassure people of like, no, it's okay. Like we still have all the stuff, even though you're going to log into a brand new account, it's going to be completely empty. We still have you. So that's been another point of needing to reassure people.
That sounds like a lot of headache is really what this is. Guys, really. What I'm getting from most
which
of it.
is
like it's just a lot of like, no.
Which is why we didn't do this for too long, right? Which is why each time we would look at our current software and go, we need to move this, or can you believe this, or again. We would then look at the prospect of the next 3 months that we would be dedicating our life to making the transition happen and go, yeah, no, we're good. We're real good. We're real fine. Did I ever actually tell you why we ended up making the switch?
No.
Okay. So the reason that we decided to make the switch, so I'd been building. One thing is, as with anything in life, where I guess anything that you're using to make money or as part of your business, or even just in your personal life, things like support, help, documentation, that kind of stuff are a lot more important than you ever really understand or realize. Because you get into something and you go, why would I ever need to call IT about this? What could possibly mean? What could possibly go wrong? Like, I'll just start the software and we'll be good to go. And it may function like that for a while. And then you start to run into weird edge cases, or you want to try and do something with the software that it physically can't do. And you want to know if it can do that, or if they could make that change, or clients have problems, so the only way to interact with this company, the original one, was basically through messaging. They had no phone number to surfaced or really real way to book a call easily with them. And every time we message support,
that sounds weird.
Terrible.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yes. And after a while, they made a section to the app where you could go in and you could request a phone call. But sometimes the phone calls were booked up for like 2.5 weeks out. So it's like, what? Huh? Like, I need this now. Like, I needed this yesterday. And then each time that we did message with the support, it was like we had never talked to them before, right? It was so frustrating.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, they were like, well, hello, thank you for contacting us. Did you read this help article? And we're like, we've read it 11 times. Or like, scroll up in the chat and it's already there. Like, so it just got to the point where like it really wasn't progressing. And I don't know. Then early on, we sat down with a big phone call with them where because we were a squeaky wheel, and they were like, hey, here's our professional success team member. They want to talk to you about some features that you want. And we had all these things, and they were like, oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, we'll get this on the timeline. And oh yeah, we're rolling out this is coming soon. We're going to blah, blah. And I know software development is hard, and I know software development never follows timelines. The app, when we first came on, they were like, yeah, brand new one in like 4 months. That was 2 years ago. It's the exact same, right? Like, they haven't made any changes to this. And the changes that they do make are like, they're like, well, what if you sell products? We've made it easier than ever to sell products. And we're like, that's not what I wanted. No.
Yeah, that's not what I do. Yeah.
Right. So it's like,
just like the wrong fit for what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And then
kind of like,
And then the way they
Not
technically
good,
do
anyway.
this, right? So the way they do this is it's a messaging app, basically. It's just like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger that you download on your phone, where it doesn't expose your personal data to the person on the other end. It just comes through as a message. Now, here's where things get a little tricky. They don't require the client to download the app. So how do they get messages? They come through as text messages. So here's what happens. When you
what?
ready for yes.
Okay,
are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? Okay. What happens is when you log into the app, all you give them is your phone number, and then it sends you a security code, and then boom, you're into the app. What happens is when you message, it takes your phone number, goes over to their servers, garbles it up, and spits it out as our company phone number. Okay. But that's your phone number. So what happens when I have a team of 11 people? Each one of their phone numbers gets sent to the server, garbled up, and then spit out as the same phone number as the company. So
you're joking.
Okay. So the client, so this was something we were never comfortable with. Technically, the client never knew who was messaging them because it just came through as a phone number, right? So it's very simplistic. It's beautifully simplistic in that way. It's not confusing. They're not getting messages from 11 different people, which is nice, right? That's a good feature. So we just had staff members sign off with like a dash and then their name. So mine would say, great walk today, saw a bunch of birds, pooped twice, peed 2 times, was easy on the walk, didn't react whenever we saw the dog across the yard. It was great seeing them today, dash Colin. We just had people update that way. So now you're going, okay, well, what happens when the client responds? Okay, because the client's going to respond because it's just from their perspective, it's literally just a text message. So client responds, it gets garbled up into the server and gets spat back to the last person who texted them. And it shows up just as the client profile. It doesn't show their phone number because it's coming through the app to the staff member. But it only goes back to the last person who messaged them. So in order for us to see message threads, and it did that for every single person. So if you did today and then I did tomorrow, you could be chatting with them, but your chat would disappear as soon as I showed up to check in and started messaging them, and they would stop being able to message you. And
who designed this? What in the world? What?
Well, okay. So
this is the most convoluted, terrible plan.
And I will say,
ever.
As a lightweight app of like, I just want to get in and start doing services and messaging. Like it is beautiful at that. There's nothing needed. Clients don't even need the app. Remember, let's keep that in mind. Clients don't need the app. It keeps it super simple. It's just text messages. That's what everybody does. And we had a lot of people who really liked that, where they just, they just texted. That's all they needed. They got text, they got photos, they got updates, they could, respond. But if we needed to, the other thing is that if a client responded and said, "Hey, don't put them in the kennel," well, if the staff member puts their phone in their pocket and they're off the clock, they just walk away. Well, who gets that notification? Well, it goes to their phone. Yeah. So Megan and I were constantly diving into each individual staff member's message threads, making sure clients weren't sending them questions or updates or weird things so that we could then stay on top of it. And then we had a question from the very beginning of like, how does the phone number show up? And they said, it shows up as your company phone number. Like, great. Okay. Now, what happens when a staff member leaves?
All that stuff's not saved, isn't it? Because it's only directed to their number. So it's not saved in like a common thread. There's no company thread because everybody's individual phone number is like, quote, the company. So you're going to lose a bunch of stuff, right?
You're going to lose a bunch of documents, a lot documented history of communications, of questions, of problems. All that disappears. Additionally, let's say you work for me tonight and you quit tomorrow, and that client doesn't book right away. And 4 months go by, and then they message that text thread and say, "Hey, do you have availability for tomorrow?"
Oh, got you.
to whom would that message go?
Nobody knows. Probably to no one, I would guess. The way that this system sounds.
I know because I know because I demanded the text logs and I combed through them. Here's what happens. It doesn't go to that app because that app that from the staff member is gone. It goes to their personal phone number.
Ew, what?
And shows up as a text.
Ah.
And then here's the really great thing. When the staff member tries to respond, they won't respond
because it's not.
They get an error that says, "Please download please download the app so you can continue messaging." So they're stuck. And if you have a staff member who terminated on some not so very good terms, they're not going to tell you about this.
Well, no.
And there's no way to go in from my end as an admin to see that message because it doesn't exist because they're not a team member anymore.
Yeah.
So
this is the worst design thing I've ever heard of in my life. What?
I found out about this. I found out about this because we had a staff member leave. She loved working for us. Just she needed to change. Totally fine. She sent me a screenshot one day of like, "Hey, I don't think I should be getting this." And I was like, "What?" And it was a
you are correct.
texting her. And I shot back and got on the tech support and we blew this up. And I demanded, I said, I had a lot of turnover. Okay. I need you to send me a log file of the text messages for these 7 people.
Oh no.
Okay. Turns out over the last 5 months, it's only 6 months. It's only happened 5 times. Okay. But
still,
it happened, right? It happened. This was the last straw for us of it. They thought that engineers at the company thought it worked one way and it does not. And because they flat out said engineering says it will be rerouted to the admin number or to your admin account. And I was like, explain this. I have a photo. Right. Wow. And they were like, "Oh, we'll work on getting that fixed." So couple that their statement of "we'll get that fixed," coupled with our long history of them not fixing things and
I was gonna say, fixing not occurring. Guess we know what's going on now.
The history of their support and now the egregiousness of this, of like, okay, this is a really cool system. It has not been battle tested. And we can't have that.
No.
Straight up can't.
Oh, man.
So
the disaster.
Oh my gosh, it was. So the system we moved to is like the granddaddy of all softwares. It is a sledgehammer to all problems. It started in 2012, or older than that. It's been hammered out by, it's only for pet sitting and dog walking companies. Like that's their only people that they serve. It's got, they only employ people on their staff that like have done pet sitting things. Most of their IT staff and their customer support staff have been dog walkers and pet sitters before. Or have like, yeah. So the co-owner,
fingers crossed.
I know. Right? The co-owner, he and his wife used to own a dog walking pet sitting company for several years before they started using this software. And then he came on as staff to the software, and now he's co-owner of the software. So it's like, okay, these people get us, right? They understand what needs to be done. Now, I will also say they do things weird. They do things very weirdly, right? Very odd. We don't bill the way they bill. They do entirely off of invoicing. So they have the world's best most complicated invoicing system in the world. You can have automated, half automated, fully like next day, same day, all sorts of buttons and doodads and flips to Bob. But it's like, we haven't done invoicing in like ever. So like we're having to learn. So now we're having to like learn their system. And like, it's just part of that. Like, that's not how we operate. But to get the benefits of everything, we have to do this. So that's a big pain point.
Gross. Yeah.
And there's other stuff. So it's like, I don't want to be that guy of like, hi, I'm brand new here. Here's 7 things that I recommend you try and do when they've been a company for like 11 years. Like that's not, I'm trying not to be that person, but also it's like, you've probably thought about this, but this would be a pretty neat feature. And, so
yeah.
So anyway, that's why we made that switch.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, that makes a lot more sense because that is horrendous and just disgusting, and that's like literally the worst thing I've ever heard of. So I don't know why on earth someone would decide to do things that way, but here we go. I guess that's
right. And I know they were trying to be mobile first. They were trying to be extremely lightweight. They were trying to use existing technologies. One of the things that most of the other pet sitting softwares out there do, they're like, "Oh, your staff and get updated immediately with emails," and I'm like, "Oh my
with
gosh,
fax machines,
right?" Exactly. Yes. And so our former software was like text message and phone only. We don't even have a desktop app. What are you doing? Why would you book on the website? Like to go through your phone? Like it was very modern in that aspect. But we were at, truly, I'm going to say at the ragged edge of what this thing was possible and constantly going past it with number of employees, with complexity of services and amount of usage. Because most of the time that when people who they say this is for is like, are you a carpet cleaner or a maid service and want to book things? Like, so it's like there's one crew or it's just yourself and herder. And we're like, what if 11 people were operating at the exact same time every single day? Would that be fun?
Turns out no.
And their servers said, no, thank you.
Yeah, we're just going to shut down now.
Pretty much is what we did to those. So, fun times.
Oh, yeah. Great, right?
So that is why we find ourselves where we find ourselves.
This makes sense.
In this process.
Yeah.
Still.
This makes sense. That's all right.
Yes. Yeah. It's not quite as interesting as where Bilbo found himself.
Hey!
The start of chapter 2.
It's true. That is, in fact, true. Because where Bilbo found himself was in his house. Alone.
Okay, well, but
full of confusion.
It was a wild night previous.
It's true. But he woke up and they were all gone.
He was, and he was feeling just a trifle disappointed. I love these words. Trifle, just a trifle disappointed. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And we continue to get we're still in the growing character phase of this, of him discovering new parts of himself, of like, he could not help feeling a trifle disappointed, and the feeling surprised him. Like, it was like, I love that so much.
Yes, it's very interesting, right? Yeah, he's conflicted a little bit, confused, right, and then like also annoyed, right? Because he's like, "Oh, I got to clean up all this stuff. I got to do all this nonsense," right? So he's having his inner conflict, but it's kind of weird because it assumes you're sort of assuming that some time has passed, but it's like in the second paragraph, like Gandalf just bursts in. He's like, "What are you doing?"
I know.
Like, what do you mean? What am I doing?
It's almost the story is advancing now.
Yeah. It's like, oh, by the way, again, you could tell the narration style of this is like fast and loose, right? It's like, it's just how you would orate a story. You know what I mean? Like, it's what it feels like, because it's like, anyway, come on. Not for the last time, I'm sure. But yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Gandalf busts in, is all like, "What are you doing?" Like, I'm eating. What are you doing? Why are you at my house again?
Uh-huh.
And then the classic blunder, right?
Oh,
Well, didn't you read the note? What note?
what? No.
Can't just go and leaving random pieces of paper on people's mantelpieces and expect them to find it and immediately respond to you, right? Like, what kind of nonsense is this, Thorin?
That's what I love about this, is you could almost see the conversation that Thorin and company had with Gandalf of like, should we leave? And Gandalf responded with, don't worry, he'll wake up and he'll start cleaning immediately and find this note. Right, of like he can't stand a dirty room. He's going to clean this, put it on the mantelpiece. He always dusts that, blah blah blah. And then then Bilbo is so unlike himself. He didn't dust the mantelpiece. Haven't we all found ourselves not having dusted the mantelpiece?
Oh yeah, it's just. I mean, again, if you wanted to find it, put it right on the table.
Yes, it is
right in eyesight. Like what is this? Right. This is like, okay, so this is a thought I have a lot of times, right? Whenever I go take, the office always like, hey, bring me X paper or whatever, right? And you go there and nobody's ever there, right? They're always gone. Secretary's always gone. Principal's never in our office, right? So what do you do with the paper, right? You have to put it somewhere. You don't know where to put it. You need to make sure they find it. Where does it go? This is a conundrum that I have oftentimes. So what I do is I put it right directly in their chair. So that they always find it and they always know that I brought it, right? You put it in the mailbox thing, like the tray, the mailbox thing. You don't know if they've read that recently. You don't know how often they go through it. It could get lost in the shuffle and all that stuff. You just want to randomly throw it on the desk because it's definitely getting lost somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. So I always just put it right in the seat. Boom. So to make it easily findable.
I train staff on this of, okay, you've collected a bunch of trash from a house, and you've got it in a bag. Where are you going to put that bag so you don't you person don't forget it? Where do you put it? You don't put it on the counter. You don't put it in a chair because it just immediately blends into the background and you will not see it because you're moving. But the client will come in and immediately go, why is there a trash bag on my chair? Right? Why?
Yeah, exactly.
So you put it right in front of the door, preferably hanging it on the door handle that you're leaving. Right.
Yeah.
So that
right in the way.
Right in the way. Exactly. Not on a non-dusted mantelpiece.
Exactly. Come on, Thorin.
Yes.
Get out of here.
And I love the terms of this contract. Funeral expenses to be defrayed by us or representatives if occasion arises.
Yes. Here we go. Just enough to cause some more trepidation on Bilbo's part, right? Like just enough weirdness to be like, wait, what? What?
Mm-hmm.
So he is rushed out the door to go meet the people at the Green Dragon Inn, right? Which is still in the Shire, I believe, right? The Green Dragon is in the Shire. This is where Merry and Pippin later will spend a lot of time, right? They love the Green Dragon. So they haven't gone too far, but he's still got to book it because they're almost getting ready to leave, right?
And he rushed in such a hurry that he forgot what? Of all things.
Everything, literally.
Everything, including his pocket handkerchief.
Oh, yes, of course.
So offset by this.
This is... I am imagining this is like Tolkien's self-insert character because if you just see the way the man dresses, right? Like the most British way possible, right? Like tweed, everything, like vest, shirt, tie, jacket, outer jacket, all the stuff. Like Tolkien does not go anywhere without a handkerchief. I can guarantee you that he
this is true. Yeah.
Looking at how he's dressed and how he portrays himself, that man never went anywhere without a handkerchief. So, and because old people just don't go places without a handkerchief. This is a thing. Right? Yeah. This is a very generational thing. old people have handkerchiefs. That's just how it works. I don't know why.
It's this first sign of him. I mean, I'm going to say tangible sign of leaving comforts and moving past what he's known. Right? It's this. He dropped
That's
something
true.
that he couldn't imagine having ever done this before. But here he is, and it's starting off the adventure without a handkerchief.
Yeah, I like how he's not concerned about like a coat, right?
Or anything else. He's just like, oh, rats. Yeah.
Oh no, my handkerchief. Can we just agree that handkerchiefs are disgusting anyway, and you should not have them? They bother me a lot.
Okay.
Handkerchiefs bother me.
I have carried them. Oh, so go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. You tell me about yours, and I will tell you why they're gross.
Okay, well, so Dad used to have a handkerchief like all the time, his white handkerchiefs. But I carried them, or at least had them on my person for like more emergency scenarios, not for the I need to blow my nose, I will use a handkerchief. I've never used a handkerchief to blow my nose.
Good, because that's disgusting.
Ever. Now, did I use it? Have I used it to like bandage wounds? Yes. Or blow my child's nose? Yes. But then it's like it never existed, and I won't use it again, right? It's a single use, right?
Right. So, listeners, I need your input, right? We have a beautiful worldwide friendship base here. I need to know how this works. Here's how it works in the Midwest, right? Probably also the South. I'm just guessing that's probably true. I didn't spend enough time in New England. I did not see any old people with handkerchiefs in New England. So,
a shame.
I don't know what to do with that information. However, people with handkerchiefs in the Midwest and the South, they're always old farmer dudes, right? They have them. It's either like a white actual handkerchief, sort of bandana situation, right? But it is always folded into a square and in the back pocket all the time. Or the only other place it is tucked into the front pocket of the overalls, which is worse. But old people, what they will do is they will produce this handkerchief from their back pocket, unfold it, blow their nose in it, and then fold it up and put it back in their pocket. Which is the most distressing thing that I can possibly imagine happening. It's gross, and I don't like it, right? Like, I've never enjoyed this. I've never understood what you're going to do carrying around a snotty handkerchief all day, because you will then see them later reproduce the same handkerchief, blow their nose again, and then redeposit it back into their pocket. This is not okay. I don't like this. It hurts me. It's just gross. Just the thought. This like big old snotty rag just hanging out in your pocket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're gross.
Please let us know. Right? Tell us if this is a phenomenon that occurs in your part of the world. I need to know this.
No, I don't want to hear any handkerchief news. Moving on.
I just want to know. I want to know. Yes or no. Right? Okay. Yes, I have witnessed this, or no. You don't have to describe in great detail. Okay. Or that weird thing where they hawk a big thing, just sort of like spit it and no. No. Moving on. Anyway.
Yes.
He gets some of Dwalin's gear and just puts it on. And he looks weird because he's tiny and he has weird dwarf clothes now. So that's it.
Yeah. And this gets into the I don't want to say the yada yada section, but this is
definitely the yada yada section.
In one section, they're like, they pass through Hobbit lands, and then strange lands, and then stranger lands, and anyway, wicked people.
Yeah, there's a bit of part in here where it's like, yeah, it's just kind of like you're reading it and you're going, what in the world? I don't So yeah, it's like 2 pages of just sort of like nothing, right?
Very
Like,
quickly, people get frustrated and grumbly and uncomfortable, and yeah, it's just 2 pages of like, it's soggy and wet and we're still walking and I don't have clothes and it's weird out here and so on.
which is again, it's weird because like I don't know. This is a bit. I mean, Tolkien does tend to like babble on about stuff, but like this is like babbling on about nothing, right? He's usually babbling on about something, right? He's usually talking about something interesting, but like this is just like so it's like 2 pages, and then they're like, "Oh, hey, what's that over there?" And then like all of a sudden they're just like, "Oh, where's Gandalf?" Like that's it. That's how we get to our next.
Well, it's where's Gandalf and a pony runs away, right? I think is where
yeah.
And they start to look for it, and then they see that the fire is now in the distance. And not to foreshadow some, but man, they have a bad luck following fires.
That is true. This is not the best idea, right? Like it's kind of like horror movie logic, right? They're like, "What's that ominous looking sign? Let's go stare at it." Like,
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing to be inquisitive. It's quite another to like just go charging headlong into peril, right? It's like, okay, whatever. I guess it makes the story more exciting, though.
It does, and it's a time to test the burglar that they have brought.
Oh
with
yes,
them. For the logical ones are like, well, it's really shady in these parts, and there's no real good travelers in here, and we're kind of close to those mountains where lots of evil things come from. Hey, let's send the new guy, right? to go and do this.
Yes, with really, and again, you have to give unclear directions and shove him off out the door, right? The old hoot twice like a barn owl or once like a screech owl. You're like, what? But what is that?
Right.
Even Bilbo's sitting there going, "What? What?
Before he could explain that he could not.
Are they different? Like,
he says, off Bilbo had to go before he could explain that he could not hoot even once like any kind of owl. Oh, I love. But then we quickly get to. I just love that. Like it's like,
well, yeah. I mean, I like to. So this is interesting, right? Because this is a thing that like is in a lot of pop culture, and I want to know if like where does this is like a trope in and of itself almost, right? Like where does this come from? Right? Does it come from here? Is this like a thing that Tolkien just knew about that people said, right? Because this is like, this kind of, it's in just like culture, it's in movies, it's in books, it's everywhere, right? Most famously, the South Park movie, right? When he's like, yes, call like a dying giraffe if the guards come. And they're like, what the heck does that sound like?
Yes.
The little French kid, right? He's like, yes, makes it sound like the dying giraffe. And they're like, what? I don't. So this is just like a weird. I just sort of latched onto this like arbitrarily because it's like a weird, really weird like trope thing almost. It's all over the place, and I don't know if this is like, is this part of Anglo-Saxon literature or is this just like a funny thing Tolkien put in there? Like, where does this come from?
Yes, exactly. Maybe I don't know if this is just the like it's a play on a military thing or something that just kind of becomes more and more absurd the further you get removed from that setting.
Yeah,
right.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just thought I latched onto that a little too hard. I was like, this little trope thing is everywhere.
Everywhere.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's played sometimes in movies, it's played serious, right? They do like the bird call thing, right? And it's like a serious moment. Other times it's like a joke. Like they say it like this, they like make this sound and it's like some really weird sound. You're like, what does that mean? Kind of like Bilbo here is like, I don't even know what that means. And then they just like shove him off and he walks towards the light. Right.
And he
where
does
he finds
with pride. Well, he does it with pride. We learn more about hobbits hobbits can move quietly in the woods, absolutely quietly, and they take pride in it. And this will come back more and more throughout this of his stealthiness, and you see more and more of like why Gandalf thought him good for this, because just being a hobbit, he's naturally good at many of these activities.
That's true. It reminds me of, whenever it made me think about the part in I don't remember which movie it is, the Lord of the Rings movie, when Sam and Gollum are talking, and he's like, "What are you doing there anyway?" And he's like, "Sneaking."
Right.
Right. He's like, "I'm not sneaking." He's like, "What were you doing then?" Sneaking.
Right. Not.
But yeah, they find some peril, right? We have some trolls here, right? And Bilbo again, he's just like, "Oh, I'm supposed to be a burglar. Maybe I should do some light burgling just, while I'm here, and just to see how it goes."
I don't understand this part. This is such a
doesn't make sense.
Such a break from like, I will say this part of like, I don't like, why did he decide to do this? Like, why? Like, he just went, yeah, I'll burglar because that's who I am now. So I'm gonna pickpocket a troll. That's
yeah, right. So like, he could have just gone back and said like, "Hey, there's some trolls over there. We should probably not do that," right? But yeah, it just says here he had read of a good many things that he had never seen nor done, and he was very much alarmed, as well as disgusted, and wished himself 100 miles away. And yet somehow he knew he could not go straight back to Thorin and company empty-handed. So he stood and hesitated in the shadows of the various burglarious proceedings he had just heard of. Picking a troll's pocket seemed like the least difficult. I don't know why that would seem least difficult, right? That sounds a bit precarious, like that. And clearly it goes very well. He's not a good burglar, turns out, because he's just caught straight away. Immediately.
But we're led to believe that there's something in here about this, because it says trolls' purses are the mischief, and this was no exception. So it's like, is that a special quality about the purses of trolls? Are trolls particular about their purses? Like, I have a lot of questions about this, but this is one of the aspects of like, yeah, that's right. Why would he do that? The troll's purse? No, why would you? That's the one thing you don't go for, obviously.
Yeah.
Right?
So he gets busted.
He does.
Immediately. Terrible burglar. Right. Burglary goes south in a hurry.
You mean a burra hobbit?
Yeah, sure. And and then he gets like stuck, and he's trying to like talk his way out of it, right? But he kind of like is stumbling over himself. He doesn't know what to do. He does the old like, "I'm a hobbit. I mean, not a burglar. Totally not a burglar." Nobody said that. And that confuses the trolls, because again, trolls not just super with it, right?
Right.
So he's trying to figure out a way to not become cooked by the trolls, because that doesn't sound like a very fun experience at all, right? He doesn't want.
No, and they get in a fight with one another, for what, over who's going to cook him, right? And what to do with him.
Exactly, the what to do with him thing. But then also the dwarves solve this in their characteristic manner. They just sort of like run at them one at a time.
Yep, very bravely.
To become captured with absolutely no fight whatsoever.
Nope, just bloop, bloop, bloop.
Like, what is this? So ridiculous. Like, what a rescue attempt. Just stroll into the camp in a line and just like,
yeah, well done, everybody. Whack them both. Yep, right in the middle. No burr hobbits, but lots of these here dwarves. I don't know. In what voice did you read read the trolls in your head? Do you have a reading voice?
I guess I just kind of the movie voice, right? I think that's probably what it was.
Okay. Anyway.
I didn't really think about that too much. I just
yeah. Anyway, poor Tom.
Yeah.
Yes. And see here. Oh, and then it's trolls. They're hiding. Yeah, Bilbo shouts to him, but he didn't last very long at all.
Yeah, until Gandalf just like magically shows back up and then like beats him. Like just
well, trolls are because by mimicking their voices and to confuse them, calling to argue until they fight all the way up until
the sun rises.
Yes,
because apparently trolls are nocturnal, like so nocturnal that they turn to stone in the sunlight, which seems like a terrible plan. I don't really know how that's.
Well, that's why they live in the mountains and in the valleys and the shady
I guess
places.
So. In the caves.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And and they all say thank you, right?
Yeah, it's just like it's weird because it's like oh hey yeah thanks anyway. Like they just sort of go on and they're like, where did you go? He's like, I was looking ahead. What brought you back? Looking behind. Like, thanks.
Yep. Gandalf comes on and says, why were you doing this? This was ridiculous. Come this way. Right. And
yes, I guess.
And,
I don't know.
And they go and they find a cave with treasures in it.
Yes. A cave of wonders, if you will. Oh, wait. No, wait. Sorry.
No,
that's a
not
different.
yet. I mean,
that's a different.
Right. But yes, they get three swords and a dagger, or is it right? Because two
one at least, and then the sting. I mean, not yet named that.
Nope, nobody knows.
I mean, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Everything is fine.
Yeah,
they find some swords and some other sort of just like buried to like we might be back later. And we just get this later a little bit, right? Like it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just but they do have some swords now, so that's good. That's definitely something that could be handy on an adventure, right?
Yes, as will be important in later chapters, I believe.
Yes, definitely.
Yep. Yeah, and then we go right into chapter 3 with
chapter 3 is weird.
This is the most dreamlike one. I mean, honestly, there's not a whole lot of. I mean, personally, that happens in this story. There's not a lot of progression, except this is where we find, this. So this is where they make their way to find. They have to find Rivendell for short. For a rest.
For a short rest.
A short rest.
So yeah, they're just like wandering around, and they're getting towards the mountains. Right, they're at the beginning of the Misty Mountains. Right, the big mountain chain that runs down through there. And they're like, Bilbo's like, is that the mountain? And they have to be like, no, we got a long way to go, buddy. Don't worry about it. These mountains look lonely? No, there's a billion of them. We need just one. But they know that they have to go looking for Elrond, right? That's where they want to go. They want to go find Elrond, the Elven Lord of Rivendell, right? So this guy walking through this like a maze of like the valley with like crags and peaks and all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of like Rivendell's kind of like hidden, right? They zigzag a path into the secret valley of Rivendell, right? Is what it says here.
Yes.
But like,
I will say before this, Bilbo sees a mountain and he goes, "Is that the mountain?" And Balin's like, "Of course not." Like I just like he was personally insulted by this fact.
I mean, Bilbo's never seen a mountain before, right? He lives in the Shire. It's fine.
Yes. But yes, they make their way winding and through this, and then this is where we find the elves, and there are a lot of songs in this part.
The elves are weird in this, right? It's like
I know. we talked about that on the first episode of this, of going like they're very, very odd, not at all like later elves.
Yeah, so like this is weird because like other in like all of other Tolkien's work, like elves are very like serious, right? Like they're like all about business, right? In the Silmarillion, the elves are like, honor and like duty and all stuff, right? And they're all very like serious. And then you get in here and they're like singing like wistful songs through the trees at the travelers as they're walking by. You're like, what in the world is this? Right. So this story to me, I told Colin this when I saw him in person. So I'll share this again with listeners here. This reads like early Tolkien-y elves, right? So if you don't know, in the very early drafts of the Tolkien Legendarium, the elves were called gnomes, right? And they were like a bit different, right? They were this reads more like that to me, right? This very like kind of like singy, songy kind of stuff, right? And it reminds me a little bit of in the very, very early stuff in his like Book of Lost Tales when he was still trying to connect like the Tolkien stories to like English mythology. He wanted to make them like a British mythological thing, right? His character goes to this random island and he goes to this place called the Cottage of Lost Play and he meets these like people and they tell him the stories of like Middle Earth or whatever, right? And this gives me that kind of vibe of that like time because it's just so like whimsical and weird and you're just like what? It's weird to me, right? It's a strange thing. These elves are weird. They're not serious. Later they're like mega serious, right? Like
right.
But it's also weird because like they have the names, right? And they mention a lot of stuff that Tolkien is talking about, right? So this is again one of those places where I feel like Tolkien just sort of like randomly throwing stuff down to see what would stick, right? Just to see kind of like what was going on here.
Right.
Because you have all these jolly elves, but then you have Elrond, who is character in some of the like stuff, right? His Silmarillion in the Second Age parts. Elrond is there, you know. So I don't know if he just like picked that name out and was like, oh yeah, I don't know how planned this was, you know what I mean? So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean it is. Yeah, they say things in here like for some elves tease them and laugh at them, and most of all at their beards. Like they are very jolly, and it doesn't feel like you said, it feels very early, feels very weird. But there are other aspects of here, like it doesn't say Elrond is doing this. So Elrond,
I mean, that's true.
Like, so I don't know if this is still nailing down how elves act, or if this is Elrond is of he's acting one way and the others are acting a different way. Like I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they're elf children or something. I don't know, but like
right. That's a good point. Yeah,
because then he just sort of like drops in some randomness, and then Elrond, you know, they're meeting, they're talking, and they kind of want just some, you know, some info, right? They want to know about this. They're looking for some help from Elrond because he knows a lot of the history and all this stuff, right? And they want to know about like the map. They're going there to learn about the map, right? Because they know Elrond knows things. And they have this map that Gandalf had that he got from Thorin's dad or whatever. And so they need the map to be read. And so that's why they're going here. And you know, they get there, they're kind of hanging out and they're talking and stuff. And then Elrond just drops some bombs on them, right? And if you like, there's a couple passages in here that again I clinged onto because they're really weird. And they're just like, oh yeah, he just like starts talking about the swords. You know, they show him the swords. Right. I found these swords in the cave and blah blah. And then Elrond just casually says, like, oh yeah, these were made in Gondolin for the Goblin War. Okay. Now that's a big deal, right? Like, Gondolin doesn't exist anymore during this time in the book, kind of gone, right? There's a whole reason for that, but that's fine. But like the Gondolin, just some background knowledge for those who maybe haven't read the Silmarillion. Gondolin is like the hidden city, right? It's hidden in a ring of mountains away from the great evil of Morgoth, so that the elves can fight against him, right? It's like their station. It's like where they launch attacks on the evil of Morgoth and like in his strongholds. Okay. So saying that this the sword that Gandalf has now, this Glamdring, the foe hammer, that the king of Gondolin once wore.
Right.
Okay? Turgon is the king of Gondolin. Turgon is a big deal. Okay, like he's a huge deal in the First Age. He built Gondolin. He fought against Morgoth until he was betrayed, right? And so this is an important person just in the Tolkien legendarium, right?
Yeah.
Like he's a big deal.
But who was the goblin cleaver Orcrist named after?
Orcrist,
Orcrist, who's that?
That's the Thorin sword that he has, right? Also forged in Gondolin during the First Age. So again, I feel like this is told. I don't know when this part was added, but this feels like Tolkien again. He's just having this like massive history just in his brain, and he just sort of like spits a little bit of it out here, right? Because there's a whole huge backstory there. Again, this is the thing that makes like Middle Earth feel like such a big thing. Is he just sort of casually drops this, and the casual reader is just going to be like, okay, that sounds important. And then if you dive into this a lot more, you're like, oh, that's really important.
Right.
Like Turgon again, big deal, but so they do that. They get the sword thing. They talk about the sword stuff. And then they're just like, oh, also, by the way, just happen to have this little, map-arino here.
Yeah. Well,
just in case you wanted to check that out too while you're talking about stuff.
Yep. oh, and then I love how this is again just this suddenly the moon letters, right? They get dropped real quick of like, oh yeah, there are moon letters here.
Yeah.
Which
it makes sense that only Elrond would be able to see those, because he's like, the coolest and whatever. But
yes. And we also learn that these are highly specific moon letters and that they can only be read under the light of the moon under which they were written initially, which is not helpful at all.
Well, I mean, except for, the bit of Deus Ex Machina that, it just happens to be today. What do you know about that?
What do you know?
What a coinkydink.
Right.
You can just read them right now.
What this would lead is, I don't know why they didn't do this, of just the obsessively, and all he had to do was put a little note in here of like, and thereafter every night Bilbo opened the map to look at it, right? Like that's what I would do, right? Like, well, I don't know what's going to be here or not, so you at least have to look at it.
Exactly. It's a really weird, like, oh yeah, he's just like, oh, anyway, hey, it just happens to be, because we got to advance the plot. We can't just sit around here and wait for days and days. Like, oh well, we got to read them next month. Come back later, right? Like,
right?
Can't really do that. That kind of kills the story, So like, it's got to be a little bit silly, but. You learn some things. These runes tell them that you must stand by the gray stone when the thrush knocks. At the setting sun, with the last light of Durin's day, will shine upon the keyhole. And to which Bilbo goes, what? Like, luckily, Thorin happens to know who these people are.
Yes, and we get more Durin's day. Durin's day. right?
Yeah, we get to know, and then we get a little bit more like backdrop knowledge, like, oh, Durin is the father of the, the Longbeards, which is one of the dwarf clans. There are several of these scattered around, the Longbeards being one of them. And he was like the founding member of that whole thing. It goes back to how the dwarves were created, and that's again a long story, but again, that is a story that Tolkien has written, right? That is in Silmarillion. Like that is there. That is like a very old piece of Tolkienism. Okay. And he just again, this is him just sort of reaching in. He's like, oh yeah, this guy, blop, drops him in this story. Because that whole thing is already fleshed out and written down on 20 million scraps of paper in a binder somewhere.
Right.
And he sort of like just casually puts it in this. Like, oh yeah, Durin. Yeah, we know. Blah.
Yep. Just gets dropped again. Exactly.
Yeah. 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 That's why his world feels so fleshed out, because it is. And he, like, even though when this book came out, none of the readers would know about that, right? None of them. That's what you got to think about too. Like the fact that he was able to just do that and like leave these kind of breadcrumbs around to make everything seem full and inviting and like a real, actual fleshed out place.
Yeah,
is really interesting, because again, in 1937, when people read this for the first time, there is no Silmarillion, right?
Yeah.
There is no anything else by Tolkien out there anywhere, right? So the only person that would know what that is like maybe his wife,
or in this case, Elrond, right?
Or Christopher, or his other sons, right? Like,
yeah, but it's so nice because again, it does feel so full, because it's kind of like a like an internal proof, like an internal proof of the text itself, to like, no, this is legitimate here, because look, in the story, somebody talks about something older, like this person has a history going way far back and knows a lot of things, so it does just suddenly doesn't fill in. I'm not going to use that word of like doesn't fill in anything, but all of a sudden you see just the depth of everything that's there.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And it's just like a little like breadcrumb. Oh yeah, there you go. There's that. Just for you for later, in case I ever get this thing published. You'll need that. Boom. Right. So it's very cool. I just like finding those little nuggets just like laying around, especially in this, because the Hobbit is, again, it's kind of weird a little bit from his other stuff, but still seeing that he had so much of this on his mind, and he was able to connect it in ways that, maybe he didn't even realize he was doing at first. But
well, because in relation to his other writings that will come late after this, this is a very, like, again, in relation to other writings, this is very small scale. Like this is,
oh yeah,
right. Like that's the other thing about this, of like the stakes of this one are not very high, in relation to like eternal age battle against good, evil, like dark forces encroaching kind of stuff. It's very much a these people on this adventure doing this thing because they want it. Like it really is like, which is nice, because the whole time you're navigating through this, even in this chapter, not a whole lot happens, but the curtain gets pulled back briefly at certain aspects that shows you like a lot more going on, or has gone on.
Yeah. And it's really weird to think about that. Like whenever this was written, he had zero plans on writing like the Lord of the Rings, right? It like none. And then he had to go, and that's why a little bit of this is edited later. They go back after he's written it. He goes, oh, because Tolkien was always going back and like making things like match up. He was really obsessed with that, to make everything kind of mesh together really well. So, the first version of The Hobbit doesn't really mesh with the Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
But he went back in and he kind of tinkered with it and added some stuff, especially one of the chapters that's coming up we're going to read for next time. that is one of the most heavily changed chapters. So we can talk about that later. But so the fact that he was able to kind of pull all this off, kind of even by accident, and like take what he did writing here and then like translate it forward, and when he was able to make the Lord of the Rings, like, and connect that story to this plus his greater legendary, it's really impressive the scope that he was able to think on while he was writing stuff. Like it's just it's incredible. Like the scope of his like vision for this it's just insane, right? And that's one of the things that, like, if you are a Tolkien person, you quickly of like the scope here is very different than most other works. You know what I mean? Like it's incredible. So, and the fact that he was able to just like sort of drop some of this in The Hobbit kind of by accident is like it's really weird, but it's also really cool.
Yeah. Yep. There's a lot. Yeah. How he pulls it all together. I agree. It's neat to see this being woven. For sure. So, and yeah, we end with our adventurers setting off again. And I also I will say, as the story progresses, themes start popping up more and more as like what's the greatest thing that they're facing. Of like, oh gosh, this is gonna be really hard for me to articulate, but how names or places or things just start, like, they may be mentioned one time, and then like the frequency with which things start being mentioned at the closer we get to them in the story increases, which I really, there's a lot of foreshadowing, not foreshadowing, but like winking and nodding to things that are coming up,
right?
Yeah, priming you. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say here as I bumble through these words. Like, yeah, you start being more primed as the adventurers encounter these things. You get more and more primed for the next thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're kind of they're getting you ready for what's happening next, and so it's a very interesting way to do that. But yes, we'll see a lot more of that very soon too.
Yes, yeah, right. Yeah, no, yeah. That was chapter 3. So let's we'll rate these on a scale. No, we won't. Of like 1 to 14. Burr hobbits. No. Okay. So we had one. Again, it's just these to me were a lot of exposition, a lot of world building happening going on here in a really well done way. And moving us very quickly from the Shire.
Though.
Right, it's not right. It's not clunky. Yeah. And the whole point of chapters 2 and 3 are getting us as far away from the Shire as we can. That's basically what we're doing. Like, and we're sad. And
geographically, we have come quite far, right? Like,
yes,
Rivendell is very far away from the Shire, so that is at least welcome. Because if again, this book, the map here of Middle Earth is kind of, people don't know about it really. In the there's a bit of copy in the back of my book here, but it doesn't show you where the Shire is. But it's very far away from Rivendell, so we had to just kind of go through a lot of nothing, and then now we can spend the time going from here until we get to our final destination. There's a lot of stuff to travel through.
Yes.
So that at least we kind of skip through the boring parts, because it's just sort of implied that they're just like, oh yeah, it's just like fields and little villages and like whatever, meh. And then now we're getting to the interesting part. Like, we've been going for a while, we've been doing a lot of stuff, but also it was boring and not interesting yet. So just kind of like skip ahead, skip a bit, and then get to the good part. So that can be appreciated at least.
Yes. Yep.
I didn't need to hear about other authors would have written about like every step of the journey through every field and like river crossing that they came upon,
the people that they passed by,
all of the characters.
Yeah.
They would have taken that time to like agonizingly build out, like tell you all about all of the characters. But there's like,
tell me more about how Bomber, how does Bomber view the world? What's his background? How does Glowing?
Like, I don't Yeah, I mean, yeah. How does Oin and Gloin feel about this? Right? Like, I don't really care. So, like, I don't. Not to say that they're not interesting people, but like, that's not the part. That's not the point of the story.
Right.
You know what I mean? The point of the story is going to the mountain and defeating a dragon. And the fact that we didn't have to sit through 112 pages of like learning about every single dwarf's backstory before we got to Rivendell is really great, because that would make this like not interesting, and you would lose a lot of the important bit, because like what Tolkien is, his scope is very broad, but like he's still like, even when you read like the Silmarillion, like it's not there's not a lot of like filler, right? It's not just like random stuff, it's like very, we know where we're going and we're going to drive the point there.
He does it very economically. I will say,
yeah, that's a good way to say that,
but not in a boring way, not in an economy way of like, oh, like an economy car or a bare bones approach, but an efficient way to move the story. And I'm going to say not really move the story, like you pointed out earlier. It's the whole point is to move the characters geographically away. Like we've got to go to add some scope and depth to this of a big world. We're exploring this with Bilbo and we're learning a lot. And that's the whole point of going comfortable. Chapter 2 is basically like, forget all of that. We're gone. And then the Rivendell is that last really kickoff point of from here to the end. It's like, okay, there's a lot that now it's getting really hard, but we've got to get way away from this comfort zone, way away from the familiar to this little gateway before we keep going.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's just, I feel that's the way. I think it's good. Other people would have like padded that out a lot, but I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad he was just like, anyway.
So we will tackle 4 and 5 next time.
Indeed.
And keep going.
Yes. I'm excited because the next 2 are good chapters.
They're very,
right. Probably. Yeah, I mean, Overhill and Underhill is where like we got kicked off a lot of stuff, and then chapter 5 is like one of the most famous chapters in the book, right? I would say, because that's Riddles in the Dark.
What? We're not there yet. We don't know. We haven't. Nobody knows. But yes, there's a lot.
We're telling you the names of the chapters we're going to read.
But yes, there's a lot to look forward to.
And for the listeners who are definitely following along and reading along with us, obviously.
Exactly. See, that's how we do it. Okay. Okay. Well, until next time.
Yeah.
What's the opposite of ahoy? Yoey. Nope, that doesn't. I'll figure this out.
No, I don't know. Yeah.
What do pirates say when they say bye? What is that?
I don't know.
Huh.
I don't know.
Okay.
Bon voyage.
And on that bombshell, right. Love you. Bye.
Love you too. Bye.